Hi, everyone, and welcome to season 2 of Maple's Host of Pro, where we talk with top talents about everything from marketing to business and so much more. Our guest today is Brian Honigman. He's a Philadelphia based marketing consultant, adjunct professor, LinkedIn learning instructor, and a Fast Company contributor. He helps tech companies, nonprofits, and media brands develop actionable strategies that drive results from their digital marketing, social media, and content marketing activities. Hi, Brian.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to dive in and nerd out a little bit on all things marketing and content, whatever comes up.
Yes, let's nerd. Let's be nerds. I love it. Okay, let's start from the beginning. You're now a professor and a marketer, consultant slash coacher slash a lot of stuff. Yeah,
A lot of slashes.
yeah, a lot of slashes. What's your favorite title right now, or favorite hat?
I can't really, it's hard to pick because that's part of why I do a bunch of different stuff. I like to make sure that all my work days are different and I'm working on different projects with in different contexts. But if I had to choose, I spend my all my time is around marketing, whether it's coaching, consulting, teaching, or training. But I would say coaching right now has been career coaching has been really fulfilling. I've been focusing on it in the last year, just taking it to the next level. And it's hard to beat helping an individual figure out something in their professional life, what their goals are, how to be a better marketer, what have you. I love working with companies in all different capacities, and that's fun. I love teaching in a classroom setting, but just that one-on-one connection is really, yeah, it just makes you feel really good at the end of the day because, you know, it's just marketing. So sometimes you're like, how much does this matter? So I have to really try to, figure that out sometimes. Anyways.
No, it matters. It matters a lot. I love it. Great answer. Okay, we're gonna go back to that, but let's talk a little bit about marketing and content in in today's world in 2024. I mean, no matter if you're a marketer or a new business owner or an entrepreneur, and no matter how experienced you are or how long you've been in this sphere, I think that most people understand that content is the main thing to focus when it comes to marketing. You can disagree about my statement, by the way. But I think it's the one thing that is very clear to everyone, no matter where you're coming from and from which side you're coming from. And I think the struggle is, where do I start and what do I do, and what should be my go-to strategy if I'm a complete newbie or if I'm 20 years in the business.
Yeah.
What do you think?
So to kick things off with content, I think you need to sit down and build out a strategy, come up with a plan with your other stakeholders at the organization, and really find, sometimes this is where sometimes where content marketing or just creating content gets over engineered. It just ultimately, it's not easy either, but ultimately it's like, what is of interest to your audience or the customers you're trying to reach, and what is value that you can cover, that you provide, that is um, related to your products or services. We don't want you to be covering with a documentary some random subject that might be entertaining but has no connection back to the business. It needs to be some kind of topic that makes sense for your organization to, or you as an individual, that makes sense for you to cover. It needs to be a logical, um, you know, expertise there that makes sense to the customer. So yeah, it's just ultimately finding the intersection of what do the customers are trying to reach, what uh, insights are they looking for, what challenges and goals do they have, and how can we potentially address that uniquely from our perspective. So that's kind of the first step, and that leads to building out all the other details later. Is like, should we be on TikTok, or should we do blog posts, or what specific individual topic should we drill in on that next video or whatever. That's the first step, is like getting clear on those facets of your audience and those facets of your brand, whether you're small business or this legacy heritage organization.
You've mentioned this in your answer, so I have to ask, do you think that a business should be everywhere? A brand should be everywhere, like TikTok, YouTube, LinkedIn, X, should have a newsletter, do you believe that the more places you're at, the more you're seen? Or do you think that if you're beginning to kind of post content, then you should focus on one place and just do that? What's your take on that?
Great question. This comes up a lot. Like, there's this like fear of missing out, and there's so many different bells and whistles out there and channels. It's like, I want to be everywhere. And there's logic. You in your question, you're like, we want to be in the many different places where our customers are. There's power to a thoughtful repetition of our message on different, platforms and everything. But ultimately, no. There's a larger shift happening where even the big companies are recognizing, like the Coca-Colas of the world could be everywhere from a resources perspective. Doesn't mean creatively they should have been in all those places. So no, I think most organizations in most scenarios should have a really focused idea of a strategy behind where they decide to show up and how. The how is more important than the where. How are we, creating a connection with the customers we're trying to reach through content, and then that should inform the where. That should help inform which channels we're active on. And you want to diversify your mix, almost like investing. You don't want to put all your money into one stock in one company, and it goes haywire. You want to make some marketing investments in different places, so as things perform or underperform, you can adjust your mix. But we don't want to spread ourselves too thin and show up in a haphazard way on an XYZ channel, because you're just not going to stand out. There's so much competition for attention in all these places, and you're up against everybody else. And I really highly recommend, in most cases, that a company of any size is really strategic about where they're showing up. And make it make really refined choices there. And also, just from a resources perspective, it's like impossible to do it all well, like as a small business or a medium-sized business. Some marketing teams are just like one person or two people. And that's just like, there's a logistics issue there too.
So if I'm a small business and I'm choosing one or two platforms, now I'm wondering if I even have the chance to stand out, because I feel like it's oversaturated. Like, how can I be a new name in whatever subject I'm talking about? How can I stand out where there's so much content and so much competition? And it's either you're trying to go viral, which you can't really try to go viral. You either go viral or you don't. You can't make it happen. You can try to be as creative as you can, and it can really, drop and not work. Is there a place for new voices? Do you think that it's never too late, and you can always find a way to kind of make your way to the top?
Absolutely. I think it's another excellent question, in the sense that a lot of businesses feel this way sometimes, right? Or it can just, on the individual level, it can feel that way of like, oh, I'm like going to be setting up an Instagram account for this business. Like, am I going to just be screaming into the void? What I'll say in the beginning is that launching a new product line or a new brand or a new small business, it's a uphill battle at first to kind of break through and get your rhythm going. Ultimately, it's either you have a lot of money to push through and pay to push through, or you put in a lot of scrappy effort, time and effort, to break through from a marketing perspective. A combination of both is always helpful. But as a new business, you have to show up consistently and kind of let people know what your perspective is, what your offerings are, and kind of educate them. Showing up consistently in the places where your customers are, whether that's like a newsletter or some other channel, a podcast. Try to tap into the established voices in the larger industry or community that you're operating in. So it's like, influencers is great and everything, but it's like, it doesn't have to be like so official where you're exchanging money to pay for someone to, post about you. It can be as simple as like, I live in a neighborhood in Philadelphia, and there's all these like neighborhood Instagram accounts that like feature different restaurants and stuff. If I was a new restaurant in the area, I would immediately just reach out to them and say, hey, we're new here, or, try to connect. And this isn't just about social media, but it's just like, how can you build a relationship with different voices that matter to that your customers listen to? So that's something I always think about, or always suggest folks think about, is like, from marketing, especially in the beginning, how can I align to the established, or connect with the established voices in the space? I don't need to necessarily always recreate the wheel or start out on a brand new channel that is like less common for our sector. It's who's already out there, and how can you kind of sync up with them to kind of build off of the attention they have. It's kind of the idea of, getting press from a publication. It's like, those are trusted authorities in XYZ sector. And if they cover you, you're getting some of that trust, some of that spotlight to your business. So yeah, showing up consistently, putting in the time and effort. It's going to be a more uphill battle initially. And like connecting with the already established, like, voices, players in the space is some of the approaches you could be thinking about. But it's totally possible. You just can't show up in a haphazard way on these different channels. Like, that's what's definitely not going to work.
Yeah. You're talking about like WhatsApp groups that you have for your neighborhood and stuff like that. So that kind of brings up communities, which is my role. And I feel like it's been highlighted since COVID. Like, communities were very big on Facebook. I mean, Facebook groups, they became communities, and it was a top searched Google word. And I feel like now, with AI rising up, it's going to be even easier to find like the niche or the geographic or the small specific group that you're trying to communicate with, and to connect with them. And since you're talking about connection, and you talked about connection in your previous answers as well, so I think this is something that's kind of became the focus. It was kind of lost with marketing efforts and paid marketing, and let's just put it all out there and pay lots of money and bid high and whatever. And I feel like something is kind of slowing down, going back to basics, to talking to people about, I have the solution specifically for you, and you're the special someone that I'm talking to. And I think it's kind of like it was going the other way around, and now it's back. Do you see it happening as well?
Couldn't agree more. Like, not even just marketing related. I mean, that's what we'll focus on it, but with it. But I think it's the maturity of the internet broadly, as like, it's just kind of this free for all. And now, as it's continued to evolve, and it's, each stage, the pandemic and all these different things, like you said, the kind of there's a place where individuals can go and connect on like very specific interests, their region, and find that community. And, whatever, is it a small WhatsApp group, or is it a publication that covers, or just like a group chat just amongst like, people in a particular area. Something that's like, not, very official, just, casual. And we see this trend kind of emerging with Gen Alpha, as like, we're obsessed with these age group different terms, you know, millennial, Gen Z, and Gen Alpha, the next one coming after Gen Z. And they very much so, from different studies, are super connected. You know, they've worked always digitally native. Like they've never been around at a time where they didn't have these devices and the internet, and they super connect with, this is a brand or an organization that is specifically catering to me. Just exactly how you phrased it. Like, I want a skincare products that are for people with my worldview from this part of the world, you know, this this region, or I'm really interested in this specific facet of sports, and that's why this athleisure connects with me. And it's less about mass market appeal of the, you know, Unilever kind of brands, and more so like really focusing in. And I think you said it, it's like about connection. It's like about us feeling seen as people. It's like we always want to feel special and get attention, and the internet is like better catering to that. So for businesses, they'll not only have like the targeting capabilities, like you said, and not just like throwing money out there just to reach whoever catches their attention, sees the ad, but it's like targeting, and then actually like brands creating offerings specifically for smaller niche groups, whether it's, you know, they have a topic interest or a region, or maybe they're a forgotten, you know, overlooked demographic, you know, which happens all too often. So yeah, it's really fascinating. It's a big shift, I'd say.
Do you think do you think AI is a threat or is it a friend for marketers?
Yeah. Yeah. For marketing, I think there's both. There's pros and cons, just like any tool. You know, I don't claim to be the AI expert by any means, but the big thing that I try to focus on, and I really recommend for others, is like AI can help with a lot of different tasks. Is like figuring out, how does AI integrate into your workflow. So like most often at just like a high level, it's great for um, supporting your content creation efforts at an initial phase of like brainstorming, giving you ideas or framing that you might not have thought of, and building off of it from there, not just like using it as is. And like that can really help with cutting down the content development process, which giving you time to focus on the more complicated, the more human parts, the more creative aspects. So like figuring out, where does AI fit in my individual team, my individual works as a contributor, and then my larger team at an organization I'm working at. Organizationally, beyond the individual and the team, making sure as marketers that our company, this goes back to your question earlier where you're discussing, you know, how do you create content? Like, what's the first step? Coming up and making sure that you have a unique perspective, a point of view as a company. That is something that AI can't duplicate. It can list a bunch of facts about X, Y, and Z, but it can't connect the threads behind different values your organization has, different topics, different the storytelling across your original data and an original take on this particular subject matter. And this also connects back to what we were just talking as well, of like, you know, consumers and brands are going to continue to focus on, you know, niche topics, niche communities, niche interests, and like that kind of aligns with what a brands need to do in order to not let AI to offset some of the potentially negative facets of AI, which is like everybody can create content now at scale. So it's going to continue to make it more difficult to stand out. And who stands out as marketers on behalf of their organization? Folks that make sure that their organization's marketing has a POV, has something special to say that's unique to them, that you bring up across all the different surfaces you're active on online. That's how you compete against kind of the onslaught of like AI created content, because that's that kind of human element. That's that special sauce that your company has. It doesn't have to be this like crazy big contrived thing. This could be something that like two people at a small business can figure out. It's like what is our perspective as a small like or what is our kind of unique take? Like what are we offering that's special? What do we have to say? And like drawing a line in the sand somewhere. So yeah, I think that's kind of what I try to encourage others to do is like, how did it fit my workflow and how do I continue to offset some of the complications that arise from AI?
We're talking a little bit about social media. Um, I have two questions about that, but first one, do you have like a specific platform that's your favorite to communicate yourself?
I have different platforms for different purposes, I would say. Like I like TikTok to scroll aimlessly and entertain myself. I like LinkedIn for professional connections and keeping my network together and feeling connected with them. And it's like helpful for my business, like promoting what I'm doing, sharing, showing versus telling on my thoughts on marketing and business and career development, whatever. And then I really like Instagram for staying up to date on like what friends and family are doing. That's like kind of if each generation has a social network, I feel like, Instagram is very millennial oriented or, was one of our shining moments in terms of social media. Um, so yeah, like each of those has a different part in my life.
This is really taking me to the next question, what you just said, because I'm wondering, and I'm wondering this out loud, and I like wondering this out loud that with professionals. Um, what's going to be the next big social media platform? Because I feel like with each generation, we're covering everything that there is. I mean, what's going to be next? And my my gut feeling is saying, well, the next thing for alpha is kind of going back retro and either not having social media and use as we kind of learned that the next generations are using, or it's going to be something that is imitating that feeling of growing slowly and talking slowly and not scrolling every 15-30 seconds. Like they're going to have a better attention span, they're going to have better connections. That's kind of like, okay, I think it's wishful thinking as well, yeah, but as a millennial,
I'm
that's what I feel.
hopeful that,
But what do you
like every
think?
generation gets better in all ways, especially with social and all the kind of complicated bad sides of social media. Yeah, I don't know. I agree with I mean I agree with the notion that every generation like has their network that they're particularly connected to, like Snapchat came after, and like there's a whole group of folks that are really like that's how they communicate with friends. Um, I mean, what's missing sort of is I think going back to what we've already been talking about is that I think there'll be even more niche social networks that get to because there's always been niche social networks, but many oftentimes it just go to the wayside. Like, they get kind of eaten up by like, oh, all right, well, I'm just going to go use Instagram because everyone's there. I think over time, those kind of niche networks will do better. So like focusing in on, we are the social network for folks that live in Indonesia and like all the different, subject areas of interest for different demographics in that country. Or I think they'll get more like we've been talking about, focused on, specific regions, focused on specific topic areas. I think as it becomes more, not cost effective, like less costly to create these kinds of services, like AI will actually help here. And like AI makes it so you can create apps through, much more democratizes access to these different processes, which is an opportunity and a challenge. So I think there'll be a lot more, but like there won't be as many shared generation. This is my guess, is that there won't be as many shared social apps across an entire generation. So it's not to say like, if millennials are often use Instagram, and I'm like, obviously coming from my US perspective doesn't mean millennials all over the world are using Instagram, but it'll be broken up. It'll be broken. What'd you say?
But it's probably right.
Maybe, yeah.
It's
I
probably
think,
right.
as we continue forward,
Yeah.
there won't be like two or three. There might be like six different social channels that a generation uses that are more specific to whatever they're trying to get out of connection and socializing and whatever. So that's the only thing. Other than that, it's like I can't really, I don't really know what's coming.
No, it's cool because usually my next question is like in the talk, like the next thing that comes up usually is how do you adapt as a marketer or as a business? But we've already discussed that you adapt when you understand that this is where marketing is going. It's going to be more niche. It's going to be more specific. It's going to be more individual directed. So it only makes sense that social media networks are going to support that as well. I mean, it's going to be both ways. Yeah, we'll wait and see. I mean, this is something that's always exciting for me. Do you think? Obviously, of course. Um, okay, let's talk a little bit about your passion, the coaching, the one-on-ones. Um, Specifically because I think this, when people watch marketing related content, they want to learn whether they're a business or a marketer. They want to learn how they can get better. So, like two or three kind of tips that you can give for free for whoever's listening to us on how to kind of focus yourself
Yeah.
and become a better marketer or
Um,
business.
so as a career coach, I work with folks from all different backgrounds at different points in their career. I primarily work with marketers because it's the space that I operate in, and I have the most, industry experience and can see the different patterns and what is and what isn't working in a successful, marketing career. One challenge that most people come to me with is like, how do I stand out in the job search process? How do I stand out internally? How do I, kind of build a personal brand, if you will, for myself so that I'm a desirable candidate. I'm a desirable contributor to get promoted. And it's really making sure that you're defining your niche, not to keep going back to the niche, but and a common problem is that as marketers, especially in like the beginning and middle parts of our career, we're just kind of like doing everything. Unless you're working at Coca-Cola as your like um, first employment, first company, first job. Marketers are doing a little bit of email and social and you're writing the copy and you're coordinating with your team. And at some point in your career, you're likely to be working on like a small marketing team until you go to a bigger company, if that's your journey. And then it just makes it so that on paper, everybody kind of looks the same as a marketer, or how they're describing themselves, whether on a resume or on LinkedIn. It's just like, oh, they do email, social, copywriting, paid search. And it's just like, so does everybody. We just have this like laundry list of channels and things that like just seems like we've done it all kind of, haphazardly. And no one believes that like someone's an expert at all those things. So in that process, what's important to do is like take a step back and better categorize yourself a little bit. You want to niche down, not too much where you're like so specialized that, there isn't opportunities there for you, but getting more clear and saying, I'm a social media marketer, typically work for retail brands and nonprofits. That is already more specific. You're saying I work in social. There's all different ways we could further define that. And you're saying these are the types of clients or businesses that have employed me, just to niche yourself in a little bit more and make it more clear where you fit and don't fit. And I think that's really a challenge a lot of folks struggle with, is like, how do I position myself so it's clear what I uniquely bring to the table, and people understand which opportunities align to me. Like it's about telling your story as a professional. Um, you know, uh, so yeah, a big thing in in succeeding in your career in marketing and continue to rise up internally or externally is niching down, categorizing, pinpointing the patterns in your experience, whether it's the industries you worked in, the marketing channels and tasks that you've most often done, the types of companies you supported or worked at, your years of experience, and adding in something like, special, unique about you. Like, what do you do in your free time? What is the thread that ties everything together in your career? For me, it's like education is really what I'm doing across all my different marketing services, from consulting to teaching. Is I'm educating folks in different formats. So that's something, if I were, looking for a full-time job, and in my pitch and whatever, I'd talk about how education is really critical to me as in my role as a marketer. Anyways, so that's one thing, is like niching in and categorizing yourself effectively. And then another area to succeed in marketing is, in a lot of careers today, but marketers have a harder time, or a bigger responsibility, to stay up to date, given it just moves constantly. There's always a new channel and stuff, to trends and patterns to be mindful of and start adopting or decide not to adopt. Is doing kind of ongoing learning, where you're learning a little bit as you go, reading a blog post, listening to a podcast episode, just integrated into your weekly workflow, and then at least doing a few or one deep learning experience a year, where it's like you're, getting a certification that takes a few months to complete, or you're taking doing an apprenticeship and following another marketer in the space and learning about how they approach marketing, or the channels they understand, or piloting a new tool and incorporating it into your team's workflow, and trying to find another opportunity to provide value at your company. Whatever it is, trying to balance both, so that you're, learning a little bit about, what's evolving in marketing and how that impacts your work and your company's success, and then not neglecting to go deep on particular subject areas, at least once a year, where you're just really going in depth in a particular subject to better refine your skills. And it doesn't always have to be like learning about the newest marketing channel. It can be something, something related that will provide you value in professionally. Be like, learning about some, psychology trends and how people behave in the workplace, and that could really impact how you get buy-in for your marketing projects, whatever it may be. Try to balance that ongoing kind of shallow learning, where you're learning on a frequent basis in little spurts, but then not neglecting to like go more deep and really explore important topics. So those are like two things to be thinking about that come to mind for marketers to succeed in your career, is making sure that you're categorizing yourself a little bit, so that you're understood and as a unique, value to a team, and making sure to learn on a daily and in a shallow and deep way, in order to continue to evolve.
Great tips. I love it.
Like,
Where do you stay updated? How do you stay updated? Yeah, I mean, what's your? I mean, let's nerd out.
all over the
Where do
place.
you get your info?
Follow a lot of newsletters. So just like from like a channel perspective, like where am I learning about marketing? I like see social posts from people that I think are smart in the space and about marketing. Um, I read some of their newsletters. I read different publications about marketing. Not a lot,
How
like
many newsletters are you subscribed
especially
to?
from a business and market, like probably five or six. I think most of it is not
And
from
you read all of them.
top to bottom. Always, I'm a skimmer until it's something of interest. Then I'll dive in and read a whole edition from start to finish. Um, but yeah, those are I don't find a lot of info useful, or there isn't a special take. And so I'm really nitpicky about what I'm subscribing to. I don't know. It gets kind of meta because I'm a marketer, so I'm like, very particular about like what I'm bringing in. But
It's super interesting. I've never asked anyone that, but I'm kind of diving into that world of staying up to date and wake up in the morning and you're not scrolling on Instagram or whatever it is, but actually learning something new.
I find it difficult to, I do get some news from scrolling social, like from people that I've already followed or publications, but it's more sporadic, right? Because it's just like your feed is organized through an algorithm or recently, and it's just like I know from the newsletter sources that I'm going to get like, once a week updates on something, whether it's AI or social. But it's just like those are the formats that work for me. I know a lot of folks like listen to podcasts all the time and get value there.
That's great. I'm asking you specifically.
So I
That's
had
what
to
I
look up
wanted
the
to know.
names because I don't always remember the names of the newsletters until it's right in my face in my inbox. But one I really like a lot. It's about creators and creators, how they're impacting culture and building businesses. It's called the Publish Press. That's a newsletter I really like. And then another one I really like is Link in Bio by Rachel Carton. And it's about social media and it's different interviews with social media folks and getting their take in the day-to-day workspace of social media marketing, and goes really specific. Again, talking about niche and whatever, it's like those are already two very specific focuses to these newsletters in the greater marketing space. Those are two that come to mind that I read is pretty often.
Perfect. Great shout out. That's great. Okay, you're a professor. I'm sorry. Whenever I'm speaking to someone who has like a distinguished position, I'll call it, like being a professor, because it's a professor. What was your last? What was your last lesson about?
My last class was at Francisco Martin University. It's a university located in Guatemala City. I've been teaching there for a few years now, and I just taught this class virtually, and it was all about the foundations of content marketing. So very, very much so, kind of the subjects we're talking about today. And something that was different about teaching it this year is that we really had to better integrate the subject of AI and how the students need to be aware of it and how they're thinking about creating content for themselves or businesses in the future. And then, so that was like for the students, I mean, this is for the students too, but in creating the actual syllabus and materials and like structure of the class, I had to revamp the whole thing so that it's less reliant on like creating essays and like other kind of written material, which is a component of a lot of classroom instruction. And I try to get rid of a lot of that and focus more so on the final output of like, let's not write a blog post, an article about your content strategy. Build out the content strategy for me in a slide deck, because that is less easily duplicated in, with an AI tool. And it's just like we're skipping steps, sort of. I did this AI for teachers training from Harvard, just like watch this webinar, and they're talking about how in the past they would have someone like write a business plan about an app you want to launch, and the person teaching this Harvard course was like, now we just have them design the app using AI tools, right? It's cutting out the steps and letting them experiment in real time. So I'm not having my students leverage AI to develop apps. That's more complicated than skill set. I don't have that skill set. But anyway, so yeah, teaching was all about content marketing, and I had to shift the material and make sure that students were aware of, how content is evolving with this latest push around AI. And then the actual instruction was pretty different this time to cater to it and make sure that there's an AI policy. And yeah, it's fun.
It's nice. What other trends do you see emerging 2024? What are we going to see more of? Other than niche and AI, obviously, which we discussed a lot in this chat.
like I think leaders using social media and being active voices and acting as ambassadors for their companies, whether it's the CEO to other, C-suite or, manager level, director level folks advocating for their companies on social media. I think that we will continue to see that mature. That's not something new, but I think for a lot of reasons that will continue to be a common thread across LinkedIn and TikTok, and Google has just launched this kind of new tab in the search results called Google Perspectives, and that's including insights from individuals with expertise on a particular subject matter, and it's Reddit threads, Twitter posts, LinkedIn posts, other content pulled directly from social media, the expertise around an individual, doesn't have to be this like thought leader person. It's just someone that is consistently sharing useful info on a subject. So that's even more incentive for leaders, individuals to advocate on behalf of their companies, and for companies to support and fund this. And because there's also, if this feature stays, this Google Perspectives feature as just one of the benefits, there's, more search visibility potentially available to you. So that's a big one, is like social media for leadership will continue to mature. And then another one, reacting to trends. It shouldn't be the only focus of any company when it comes to social media. But it is an important facet of what you should be doing as a company. And in order to do it effectively, you have to move quickly. You can't see a trend pop up on TikTok or Reddit or Pinterest and then react to it a month later, react to it 3 days later. Sometimes some have longer shelf lives than others. And other ones speed is really important. So a lot of people are saying this, and it just makes sense, is like, how can you figure out how to reduce the approval process time from here are the posts we want to share in line with our strategy. Can I get approval from your individual boss, whoever, all the people that need to sign off and say, yes, this can go live. How can you tighten that whole process to become a more, powerful company with more effective user of social media on behalf of the brand, so you can react to trends really quickly. This has been talked about a lot recently in kind of the marketing space, is like tightening this up, especially at like these bigger companies with legal and all this. How can you move more nimbly so that you're adding your company's perspective into emerging conversations in a timely manner? Because the time factor is pretty important.
Cool. Brian, thank you so much. This has been a very insightful talk. I loved having you on the show. Anything else that you want to share before we finish the interview?
It was nice to chat. I could talk about this stuff all day. Anything else I want to share? No, I just, if folks ever want to talk more about marketing stuff or learn more, got a lot of great resources on my website, brianhonigman.com. I got hundreds of free articles that I've published on there and other sites, and they're all linked up there. I have a lot of courses on LinkedIn Learning and different sites about marketing that you can take. Some are free, some are low cost, but it's all available on brianhonigman.com.
That's great. Thank you so much.